this slide talks about reference angles and how to calculate them for each of the 4 quadrants. I almost think it's overkill though, because they give you 4 different formulas. This says the reference angle just equals theta. This says how to calculate it in the second quadrant is 180 minus your angle, and in the third quadrant it's your angle minus 180, and in the fourth quadrant it's 360 minus your angle. I don't want to have to remember 4 different formulas for finding the reference angle. I think a much easier method for finding the reference angle is just asking yourself, how far off of the x-axis are we? That's it. How far off the x-axis are we? There's your reference. How far off the x-axis are we? That's the reference. How far off the x-axis are we? Okay, if you just ask yourself that question, you can always do it in your head, and you're doing these formulas kind of mentally. So I don't know if I would worry about memorizing those things. Just think about how far off the x-axis it is. Example 5 is a big one. Find the values of the 6 trig functions for 210. So here we go again. We have to find the values of the 6 trig functions, this sine, cosine, tangent, cosecant, secant, and cotangent. Find all 6 of those values. Okay? So first thing we have to deal with is 210. I would recommend finding the reference angle. Okay? So I'm assuming you're not using the calculator on this. We would look at the reference angle. I know here's 180, so we got 0, 90, 180, 270. If you look at 210, 210 is going to put you past 180, about right there. And so as far as the reference angle, how far past the x-axis is it? 30. We've got a 30-degree reference right there. That's big because 210 degrees is going to act similar to 30 degrees. I've talked about this before, but the main limitation of the reference angle and using the reference angle is it doesn't tell you which ones are positive and which ones are negative. So you would have to think about, if I'm finding sine, I know sine is y values, and I know y values are negative in the third quadrant. Or you can think about the saying, all students take calculus, and say that in the third quadrant, what's going to be positive? Tangent, t for tangent, and its reciprocal cotangent. So we know right now that tangent and cotangent are going to be positive and the rest are going to be negative, right? So sine 210, I know is going to be negative. And so sine 210 is going to act like whatever the opposite of sine 30 is. And so you can use the chart. I tried to make a chart here. Let's see if I can do it. That's good. Shoot that down. Okay, so here's the chart. And you can see it on the wall. But if I'm looking at sine 30, I know sine 30 is 1/2, so sine 210 is going to be negative 1/2. And if I do cosine 210, that's what I'm trying to find, right? I'm not finding cosine 30. My question is not asking me cosine 30. My question is asking me cosine 210. Okay? So cosine 210, again, puts us in the third quadrant. And we know cosine is going to be negative. So cosine 210 is going to act like negative cosine 30. And so you look at the chart for cosine 30 and see that square root of 3 over 2. We know it's going to be negative, though. Cosine 210 is going to be negative square root of 3 over 2. Now, if we're going to use tangent, you have to remember that tangent is sine over cosine, right? We don't have tangent in this chart anyway. There might be a bigger chart earlier in your notes, but for us, we know that tangent is sine over cosine. So look at your results. You had negative 1/2 over negative square root of 3 over 2. Those were our two results, right? Sine over cosine. And so the negatives would cancel, making it positive. And we knew it was going to be positive when we were in the third quadrant. It's going to be a positive answer. The 2's cancel, and we're going to get 1 over square root of 3, which maybe you've seen enough times when we rationalize to go straight to square root of 3 over 3. Tangent 210 is square root of 3 over 3. So then the other three are just reciprocals. When we do cosecant 210, we're going to take the reciprocal of negative 1/2. Reciprocal of negative 1/2 is negative 2. And when we do secant 210 degrees, we're going to do the reciprocal of negative square root of 3 over 2. So we'll have negative 2 over square root of 3. The sooner you can rationalize that in your head, probably the better. That's negative 2 square root of 3 over 3. And cotangent 210, cotangent 210 degrees is the reciprocal of our tangent 210. I'm kind of looking right here though. That's the easiest place for me to take the reciprocal. Okay, much easier to take the reciprocal of that than of that. So reciprocal of 1 over square root of 3 is the square root of 3. There I have my 6 trig function values for 210.